Hello and welcome to episode 44 of the Lord Ninja Joke MMA Picks podcast. As always, we're back with a early leans and predictions show for UFC 325 taking place in Sydney, headlined by Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopes in their second bout. I'm joined by Josh in Australia and Will in the UK. I'm Dom, I'm based in the US, and the three of us are all battling on different fronts today. So I've got a little bit of a cold. Will is suffering from sleep deprivation. He stayed up to watch the Rams against Seattle in the NFL playoffs, and Josh is facing 40-degree heat. So we are still going to break down the fights. We'll just let you know that we are battling here. So without any further ado, let's talk about these fights, starting with the main event. So yeah, this is a rematch. And in the first fight, Alexander the Great was great. Everyone was expecting him to lose because of Diego Lopes' power. I think it was a very evenly lined fight. I can't remember how the line finished, but I think it ended up close to even money. And again, here in this rematch, we see the fight is closely lined. We have Volkanovski as a -160 favorite, with the comeback on Diego Lopes at +125. So, chaps, what's your initial thought on this fight? Who do you think do you think the odds, being so similar is correct? Maybe go to Josh first, since he's the Aussie in the room.
Yeah, I have a lot to say here. I don't know where to start, so I'll just ramble on until it makes sense. During the first fight between Lopes and Volkanovski, I was backing Lopes because I did think that Volkanovski, he's getting up there in age. He's facing a young, hungry lion, whatever you want to call it. And for the most part, the Volk looked good, but then he also looked like a shell of his former self. He looked a little bit more slower, a little bit more hittable. And that fight happened last year in April. Now, Volk hasn't fought since then. And I have a bit of a concern about how he's going to really handle that bit of inactivity, that little bit of, I don't know. I haven't seen Volkanovski fight since, and no one has really, because he hasn't really fought. So between then and now, Lopes has fought against Silva, Jean Silva, Gene Silva, and he looked good. He defeated Silva. We all know that by now. And so my question here for this whole fight, and maybe for you guys, is: do you think that that Volk's age is a bit of an issue now, given that he hasn't really fought since 9 months ago? Do you reckon that inactivity is going to do him a disservice in this fight compared to Lopes and his activity? So, any takers for that question?
I'll defer to Will, since I've got some ideas, but maybe you've got something as well.
Maybe, I guess is the answer, because I think the thing that's so weird about this one is that it's not often that you have rematches in the UFC, and it's definitely not often that you have rematches taking place so soon after the other. I think the Volkanovski versus Lopes card was one of the first few recordings that we did, and we've only done 44 episodes, so it wasn't long ago. It was less than a year. I find this one a real confusing one, therefore, because I don't expect things to really be different skill set wise. I think both guys are pretty much the same thing, but there are so many questionable intangibles that come into it, and one of them is Volkanovski's age. But he's 37 now. I think he was therefore 36 in the first fight. That's still old, and like a year goes by. I think that kind of highlights age being a weird thing in MMA, because what does a year mean, or 9 months really mean in terms of age? Like, does it mean he's fallen off a cliff in that time? We don't know, because we haven't seen him fight since then. My main issues the first time around were the way that Diego Lopes approached the fight. I was quietly confident in him because Volkanovski was going into that first fight like a wounded animal. I think in a 5-month span prior to that fight, he'd been knocked out twice by Topuria and Makachev, and the most recent one of the two of those was 2 months prior to that fight. So like, there's no way his durability had recovered. And Diego Lopes is one of the most dangerous guys in the UFC. So I thought he would just sort of go out there and like get it done. But he did that, but he overdid it in that I think he was just trying to hit home run every single time he engaged with Volk, and so that's when the vet lesson came in. So, you know, does Diego Lopes approach this one differently? He's gone on interviews and said that he feels like the occasion got the better of him, and that circumstantially everyone knew what he was supposed to do, and he took that a bit too literally, I think is pretty much what his stance was. So it seems like he's mentally evolved and knows how to approach the second time around. But yeah, I'm just kind of confused. I think there's so many like red flag variables, but they're only things that we'll be able to really conclude as to whether or not they will impact the fight when we watch the fight, which is not often the case when it comes to breaking something down. So yeah, it's a curious fight to be rematching so quickly, but I don't know where you take your source of inspiration in terms of figuring out who you think wins this one. I don't know if you have anything more concrete, Dom, but yeah, I guess I'm confused.
I've kind of gone back and forth on this one, and I just bring up the betting line here because it's you know, started at +145. So this is a long time ago. This is pre-Christmas, so everyone's had a long time to think about this rematch. It's sort of like yo-yoed around the +140, and then recently it's starting to sharpen, you know, towards Diego, which on reflection, as Josh mentioned, you know, the Volk did look a bit vulnerable at a couple of points in the first match. So there was a knockdown. I think it was early on, and Volk got back to his feet pretty quickly and just dusted himself off. It didn't seem to affect him. And then later on, I think it was more of an eye poke, or more of like he got a knuckle in the eye or something. But there was a frenzy by Diego late on in that fight again, and it was worrying. But I think in terms of like the totality of the fight, if you zoom out and look at it, I mean, it was sort of one-way traffic. Like Diego couldn't find Volk; he was too elusive on the feet, and couldn't take him down. In fact, I think it was the other way around. I think Volk was getting the better of the grappling exchanges. So, kind of agree with him being a favourite, and +127 on Diego. I don't think I'd really want to play that, because I can see +140 being enticing, or +150, but +127 is, you know, I don't know if this will keep moving closer or if it will move back out again. But I think the other factor we haven't mentioned yet is that this is taking place in Australia, right? In Sydney, and I think Diego's going to go out there very early and adjust himself. But there's that element of home advantage here for Volk. So I'm torn. I haven't really given you an answer. I guess if you're putting me on the spot, I'd say if this is going to go to decision, I think it's Volk all day. But it wouldn't surprise me if Diego at some point catches the chin of Volk, and you know we know that he's been knocked out twice, as you mentioned already, before we fought Lopes the last time. So it's a real risk, and yeah, I wouldn't be betting Volk at these prices, but as a pick, what do you guys think? Should we go with Volk?
I was going to pick Lopes here, and the main reason behind that is when it comes to rematches like this, I do think that the winner of the first fight has very little to improve on compared to the loser, and so the loser has like ways to improve on how he can like win for the next fight or this fight upcoming, right? So I don't know if that made any sense, but basically I'm picking Lopes simply because he knows where he was deficient in that first fight. He knows what to improve on and how to adjust for Volkanovski's very standard style. And I mean, I don't mean that Volkanovski is standard, but Volkanovski's style, it doesn't change per fight. It's always the same kind of stance, same kind of movement, same kind of attack, all that stuff. I think that the five rounds that Lopes spent with Volkanovski in that first fight is going to pay off big for him, because he knows where to improve. And given that, I spoke about the whole age thing that's haunting Volkanovski, in my opinion, for this fight. I reckon Lopes has that youth in him, that youthfulness in him to really make the huge adjustments needed to win this fight. And I mean, I've picked Gaethje last week as a dog for the main event. Why stop now? I'm picking Lopes.
Well, no, I mean, that's interesting because you just hearing you talk and then thinking about your pick of Gaethje. I mean, isn't Gaethje 38? So,
yeah, I know, but
he's had a lifetime of wars as well. I think the Volk thing, he might not have a chin issue. It might just be the sort of, like Will said, the after effects. After 9 months, his chin might be solid. And if he's not getting dusted, how does he lose this fight? He only loses if he gets dusted, surely.
Yeah. Like, when it comes to the whole Gaethje thing, I only picked Gaethje because I figured Paddy is not on that level of Gaethje. Whereas in this case, I think Lopes is more competitively closer matched, skill-wise, compared to Volkanovski, despite the age. So, I mean, that's me backtracking. But yeah, my pick is going to be Lopes here. I mean, I love Volkanovski, but I reckon, sometimes the greats gotta stop being great eventually. Maybe, I don't know.
All right, well, the deciding vote. You have to decide whether we're going with Lopes or Volk.
Yeah, I won't flip flop. I concluded on picking Diego Lopes for exactly the same reasons as Josh. I think that the ceiling really for Diego Lopes has more like width to it, just because, like you said, Volkanovski fought the best fight he could against Diego Lopes, whereas I think Lopes has a lot more to offer than he showed in that first fight, and he also has the ability to go away and evolve his performance based off what he saw from Volk, whereas Volk can just try to do more of the same and then, deal with the unpredictability of Lopes's adjustments. So I think that, that's the way that it should be looked at, I suppose. One thing I will say, I know we don't necessarily like to look at things from a betting perspective, but because we do have props out, it ties on to something that you were saying then, Dom. One way to really attack this fight that I'm really keen on and have already bet myself is going with the Lopes decision, no action market, because obviously the most likely method of victory here is a Volkanovski decision, but a second most likely one is a Diego Lopes finish. So if you're betting on Lopes finish only, you take a risk of fading that Volkanovski decision. And if the decision comes in, you get your money back. And if it doesn't, it's probably a Lopes finish. And I think the odds for it are like -125. So I think that the chances of these two, if one of them finishes, it's not just slightly likely to be Lopes, it's very likely to be Lopes, isn't it?
That's a crazy price.
Yeah, it's mad. I don't actually know if the odds are exactly the same as they were, but I got that like a couple of weeks ago and I was very happy with it.
Yeah, I think I bet it as soon as it dropped as well, but I can't remember what I got. I'm just checking now. I got -140. Okay. I'm just seeing what it is now.
I still think that's really good. Yeah, I would still take -140 there. I think that's like -200 region, personally.
Yeah, because basically what we're saying is who has more chance to finish the fight? Is it Volk or is it Diego? And they're basically pricing it very close to evens. So yeah, I can see it's -150 at the moment on Betfair. Interesting. I have to think about whether to increase exposure on that. So I guess, yeah, then we are thinking it's going to be a submission or a TKO. I guess it could be either, right? Could be club and sub.
I reckon it's going to be a club and, not a club and sub, but like a ground and pound based KO. I mean, if I was to guess the round, probably round 2 or 3. Only because cardio could become an issue for Lopes later on, and so round 3 would work for me, I reckon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, even though I did play the decision no action, I still think Volk's going to win a decision. I also I can see on my record, I took the Lopes points handicap because I do expect it's a close fight. It could be a closer fight than last time, and Lopes could still lose the decision, right? Because I think Volk is such a smart points fighter. But yeah, I think Lopes is live, so we've gone with the KO in round 3. Shall we move on down the card. Let's see what we've got next. We've got Dan Hooker against BSD. Who wants to kick this one off?
I suppose I could. I mean, didn't Dan Hooker just lose like a couple of months ago? I mean, I feel like Hooker is more of a company man when it comes to how active he fights. But he's essentially fighting the same kind of fighter he fought last time. Sarukian, a heavy style grappler. BSD is pretty much the same kind of fighter, right? He can strike, he can do all those fantastic things on the feet, but ultimately he's more of a grappler. He drags his opponents down to do his thing on the ground, right? I will never ever doubt Hooker's ability to pull something out of the hat, but when it comes to how I most predict this fight to happen, like most likely outcome, it's got to be some sort of BSD submission. I reckon he's just gonna be a bully and make Hooker his bitch. I don't know. That's my very
common opinion. I think that many people think that BSD is going to have his way with Hooker and ragdoll him and finish him. I'm not so sure. I think that last loss is hard to see past for sure. But definitely might be affecting the line a little bit. I don't think that Sarukian and BSD are on the same level. That's just my opinion. I think that Sarukian would easily beat BSD. I think he's got good grappling, don't get me wrong. But I think that Sarukian's grappling is a level above. Dan Hooker's takedown defense is 77%, which he's really going to need to have. So he got taken down a couple of times by Arman. And he got taken down 5 times by Gamrot, but I don't think Gamrot had much control time. Let's have a look. But then Gamrot isn't known for having control time, is he? So that's the other issue, yeah. I think Gamrot controlled it for 2 minutes in the second round, only a minute and a half in the first round. And that was a bit of an upset. Well, it was definitely an upset. I think Hooker was, plus 300 in that fight, if not more. Look, I'm basically saying he's got a shot here, but I'm definitely not expecting him to win. I think it's a real long shot for Dan Hooker. Yeah, maybe the odds are probably correct. I don't know if we need to overthink this. I did already place a bet on Hooker, and I kind of have buyer's remorse on it a little bit. But I thought at plus 250, which is what I got here. It's the odds are actually, I think they're at that level now. Probably wasn't that wide. Will, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this fight?
I actually looked into this one in a lot of detail over the Christmas break because I immediately thought it was, like that plus 270 on Dan Hooker was very interesting. I've always been a long time hater of Benoit Saint Denis as well. This is something about him I just don't like. And rewatching all of his grappling tape, I remembered what it was. His top control is some of the worst I've ever seen. I literally went back and watched everything, and there are at least 5 instances of him getting back control and the fight getting back to the feet in the same round. How often do you see a fighter get back control? If a fighter is apparently lethal on the mat as him and literally the fight getting back to his feet, it's crazy. So for me, the conclusion was kind of is Saint Denis a Gamrot with bad top control, or is he a Sarukian or a Micallef with good top control? Because that would be the difference. And I don't think he has it. I just think that he'll get a takedown on Hooker after trying very hard to get it, because Hooker's got a decent first level takedown defense. But then, he fumbles it and gets back to the feet. And then I think this fight can look a lot like the Dustin Poirier fight. Which was basically that. It was Saint Denis getting takedowns mainly because of the guillotine attempts and not being able to do anything with it. Things getting slippery, losing the position. It happened, 3 or 4 times, and then eventually Poirier found his moment on the feet. I think Hooker can do that. It's just whether or not you can trust Hooker, because that Sarukian performance was pitiful. If he gets taken down and he's staring up at the lights and he just can't be arsed, then he'll give up and he'll let BSD submit him. And the fact that Hooker is taking this fight, 2-3 months removed from that Sarukian fight, it's
It's not good.
That's a big red flag because he's not gone off and like evolved and tried to improve and then wants to test his skills. He's just come in for a paycheck. So I think if there's if Hooker wants to be really enthusiastic and is really up for the fight here, he really is value and really can cause problems for BSD. But I just don't know if I trust him to do that. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking Dan Hooker based on what you said about the top control. I like that. The fact that BSD isn't as great a grappler as everyone thinks he is, but it sounds to me like you're leaning Saint-Denis.
It's just classic me. It's one of those things where I identify that a guy is value, but I just can't pull the trigger on it. But I guess I don't know. I probably won't be betting Hooker myself, but I definitely don't want to trust BSD. So I'm really on the fence in that sense.
Hooker then.
Fair enough, fine by me. I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm really on the fence. Honestly, I was hoping one of you guys would be a lot more like very confident in it. But yeah, Hooker could be the side.
Here's an interesting fact as well. So Dan Hooker is 5-1 in the UFC in Australasia. I say Australasia, so it includes New Zealand as well. So I think that's impressive.
But who did he win against though? That's
the problem is that let's have a quick look at who those fights are against. Some of them are impressive. Share this tab. Let's click on Dan Hooker. Zoom in a little bit. So I have to check because it doesn't give you the location here. So the Gamrot one, that was down under. I didn't realise he beat Jalen Turner. Oh, that was an upset as well, wasn't it? I don't think that one was in Volkanovski Rodriguez. See, you can't easily work out. I went through all the fights and I know that it's 5-1. I think the Felder one, that was in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Who did he beat? I mean, if you look at his record, though, he's only fighting really good people. He's fought the who's who of the lightweight division. It's a very... I know he hasn't necessarily beaten, but, the wins over Gamrot and Jalen Turner. I hear a lot of people also, like, looking down on Dan Hooker and say he's the worst person in the top 10. And yeah, I know he's not great. But when he turns up, he's a pretty hard person to beat. I mean, wins over Al Aikens, Paul Felder, and James Vick back in the day, those were good fighters. He got win over Gilbert Burns as well. So I think he's just looked pretty bad in some of his losses, like the Allen one. I mean, cut to featherweight. It was just, I don't know what he was doing. So he makes some questionable decisions, which I think, like Will said, means let's just be safe. And let's just do submission since that's the recency bias thing. I think Hooker can survive. So what do you think? Round 2?
Oh yeah, I reckon round 2 would probably be the best chance he can get it. Yeah,
me too. I see him like having a spirited defensive display in round 1, and then just getting taken down early in round 2, and just going, oh fuck it, just get arm triangle or something.
Yeah, I think it's hard to trust him, to be honest. Yeah, I definitely have buyer's remorse over betting on him, but maybe he can pull it out with the fans. Doesn't let his family down or his friends down. I guess they'll be there, hopefully. Right, we move on. This is going to be a banger. Rafa Fiziev against Mauricio Ruffy. And I think the first thing we need to do with this fight is really look at the odds, because there's been big odds movement since the fight was announced. So we look at Mauricio Ruffy. Okay, I didn't realize this. So they opened at a pick'em. I didn't realize that. And quickly went up to a plus 165 or plus 150, plus 140 for Ruffy. And he was plus money for the whole of Christmas and the first half of January. And then just very recently, late in January now, he's come and he's a favourite, minus 128. That's about 1.78 or something like that. And so he was plus money for a long time. And let's just see if there's any other variants in the other books. No, he's even a bigger favourite, minus 135. And Fiziev is, just shot up today, basically. So we're recording this. I think that's interesting. But if we focus on the fighters themselves, this is a striking matchup. Fiziev is a short, stocky, sort of more powerful striker. He likes to use his kicks. And I'd say Ruffy's he's not as stocky, or he's more of a rangy striker. I think he mixes his punches and kicks at range very well. He just lost to BSD, the man we were talking about, in a very disappointing performance, I think, because he was a big favourite. And Fiziev had a great performance. I think we talked about that on the pod, and we actually all backed Fiziev to beat Bahamondes. I think that was Will who broke that down. So yeah, guys, what do you think about this? Do you agree with the line movement? I know one other thing to mention is I think Rafael Fiziev has had some surgeries. I don't know if they're recent or not. I just caught wind that he's been struggling with, I think it's knee injury. So yeah, I open the floor up to you guys.
Well, I have always been a fan of Fiziev, and I have been a firm believer that it takes a very special person to defeat Fiziev on the feet. Only a few have done that. Well, one in recent memory would be Gaethje twice, and Gaethje's special in many ways. I mean, mentally special and also just physically gifted, right? I think that when it comes down to the brass tacks of things, Fiziev is going to be the more technically proficient kickboxer compared to Ruffy, because as good as Ruffy is, his wins have been against fighters who are pretty much punching bags, really. I mean, I think last time we spoke about Ruffy, I highlighted that he doesn't have that many wins in the UFC, or like he has wins in the UFC, but they're very shite names, like very, very crap names compared to his competition. And Fiziev has an extensive list of like wins dating back to Lord knows when, Alex White, that would be 2019. So pretty much there's going to be a bit of a experience gap here, and I do expect Fiziev to make this one more competitive than the odds probably suggest. I mean, the odds are near even, and maybe that means people expect this to be pretty competitive. So I can't leave my side of picking Fiziev. No matter what argument comes my way about Ruffy or how bad the knee injury is for Fiziev, I have to pick Fiziev here. Like I'm already boarding that train, and I'm just waiting for that bitch to depart. So yeah,
interesting. But do you think that he can outstrike Ruffy? Because obviously he's at a height and reach disadvantage, I believe. Let's have a look at the. And I know that's something you like to look at. So if we zoom in a little bit here, we see that it's 4 inches of reach he's giving up and 3 inches on the height.
Yeah, but if you look at the strikes landed per minute, there's a bit of a huge difference there, and that's pretty much a testament to how Fiziev strikes. He's very quick to enter range, quick to land his flurries and his combinations, and quick to exit range to back to jab or teep range. Whereas Ruffy typically relies on more traditional boxing, where he throws his 1-2 down the line. He maybe throws a head kick here and there, or a body kick here and there, but ultimately strikes from a distance. So for Fiziev to kind of to compensate for that physical discrepancy, the shorter range or whatever, he has to be the more volume-oriented striker. He has to be the quicker striker, and I think he is that volume-oriented striker, and I believe that he can be the one to outpace Ruffy's own striking. Yeah.
Okay, Will, what are your thoughts? And seems like we're divided here. I'm more on Ruffy, but I haven't dug deep into it. I mainly played it because I actually wanted to put a bet on Ruffy because of the odds. I knew that it was probably close to a pick'em, to be honest. But it wouldn't surprise me if Fiziev is able to win this.
I felt like it was going to be lined close. I'm not surprised that it was, and I'm not surprised to see that it's been sort of like moving around. I just think it's one of those fights where once you lock into a narrative and decide why your guy's going to win, it's hard to unsee. Whereas I feel like both sides of the equation could have a passionate speech. I think the main takeaway for me that I always struggle with Fiziev is that there's always some sort of narrative that makes him unappealing. Like whether it's the injuries, his size. For me, it's the cardio. There's a consistent. I haven't done the tracked it number wise for a long time, but there's a consistent issue of him fading late in fights. And when this is expected to be a competitive kickboxing affair, and both guys are pretty durable, I always have my concerns with Fiziev just because I assume it's unlikely he wins round 3, which if this one's 15 minutes, that makes a mountain to climb and a perfect fight needed in the first 10 minutes. So, but then on the flip side, like Ruffy, he had most of his UFC fights when we were all enamored with the fighting nerds, and I feel like the betting odds and the hype and how much he was a talking point in the UFC picture really could have fugazied us all into how good he really is. Like, he's good to watch. Like the tape definitely demonstrates it. But who has he beaten? And I know like Bobby Green's a decent name, but the way he finished him was obviously far more of a talking point than the actual substance of the fight. It was over in 2 minutes. What do you really take from that? But decision win over James Lontop. Okay, I mean James Lontop outstruck him, which is he'd landed 90 significant strikes on the guy. Finished Jamie Mullarkey, and then Contender Series. I don't really know that guy off the top of my head. That record, it wouldn't surprise me if you give him the right opponents for the next 2 years, and he ends up with more losses than wins in the UFC. That is not a tried and tested record. So I guess I'm also non-committal on trusting Ruffy, just because I know that there's so much his betting lines are always spiked with popularity because his name carries so much more weight than it should with that record alone. So you asked for a... There, go on.
No, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say you asked for a conclusive, deciding vote, but honestly, I'm so on the fence with this one. I would say give Ruffy the benefit of the doubt because my main issue is Fiziev's cardio falling off a cliff. I think that does give Ruffy an advantage, but it's a very slight one. I think it should be lined close. So this is a coin flip for me personally, but yeah.
I completely agree on the record. I just wanted to point out as well, these two fights here, and this is my thing about Ruffy, which is I went on about a little bit in the lead up to the BSD fights. He's not really a lightweight. So the Dana White's Contender Series, that was 170 actually. That was a welterweight fight. And then his fight against Yontop, that actually took place at 165, I think. And that's not Ruffy's fault, but Yontop missed weight. And then if you look through his whole career, prior to the Benoit Denis fight, he'd actually had 13 fights at that point before he fought PSD. And 4 of them were a lightweight. 4 fights at lightweight. Obviously, a couple of them in the UFC. So he'd had the King Green and the Mullarkey fight. Only 2 times he'd made weight in the UFC. And then he's only made weight 2 times outside the UFC. So I was just and if you look at him, he's huge. So I was saying he's not. So I think the cardio thing, if a cardio is an issue for Fiziev, it's certainly going to be an issue for Ruffy going late in the fight. All this to say, yeah, I don't know. We're going to pick it. This is tough. I think there's lots of things to like about Ruffy in this matchup, specifically. The reach advantage, but yeah, he's not as busy. He's been knocked out before. Yeah, I'm completely torn. We're going to have to make a decision. So yeah, I'm going to go with
Ruffy.
Yeah, let's go with Ruffy for the line movement. There's something afoot here. Whether it's the injury to Fiziev or just a lot of cappers on Ruffy, I think this might be the first time which we see, we could possibly see Fiziev finished. He's never been finished in the UFC, I don't think. But I think the most likely outcome is probably a decision. What do you guys think?
I mean, you two are picking him, so I'm just going to stay quiet here. You guys can figure this puzzle out.
Yeah, I agree. Decision. Fiziev is very durable. I think only loss was to Gamrot, but it was injury based. So yeah, I'd expect him to go 15 minutes probably. I wonder what the price would be on fight goes to decision. So I imagine people are expecting a barn burner. We'll see.
Yeah, I think the prop lines drop tomorrow, so we will be able to look at that, and that's a good point. I think that Yeah, I don't know. I think it will be favoured. Yeah, I think because both these fighters have good movement and are evasive, and have good chins, which is something I pointed out for the Alan Silver fight, because a lot of people were expecting a finish, so a lot of people betting the finish props on Silver. So I just thought, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think Alan he did get caught a few times, but I don't think he was in trouble in that fight. So I think both these fighters can stay safe. And this is a fight which we're not expected to go the distance, since we're talking about fights going the distance. Tuivasa against Tallison Texeira. This is under 1.5 rounds, in my opinion. That's the only thing I can predict here. Of course, look at this, 5 losses in a row. Probably I can predict Tallison's going to win this. Yeah, it's not good. Mind you, these are good fighters. Losing to Rosenstreich, Tibura, Volkov, Pavlovich, Kaan, those would all beat Tallison, don't you think, guys? So let's have a look further back in the career of Tuivasa. He's beaten Derek Lewis, Sakai, Greg Hardy. Yeah, he's got some good wins. He's generally losing to people who hit harder than him or grapple. I guess Tallison, you can make a case that he hits harder. What are you guys thinking about this? Do we need to go into this in detail, or is it straightforward?
I have a few concerns regarding if he's going to make weight. I mean, I know that sounds stupid. I mean, 265, yeah, anyone can make
heavyweight.
But but wasn't there a whole thing about him being like 400 pounds or like 400 pounds or whatever? Like he's a big dude. He always weighs in at the maximum weight you can weigh in at, and he's been off for about 2 years. So it raises a few questions about whether his discipline has really kept up with him for those 2 years of not fighting. And on the opposite end, he's going to be the much shorter and much shorter in general fighter compared to Tallison, who is just a giant compared to Tuivasa. I mean, outside of Tuivasa's fuck you power, if we'll call it that, I can't see him out finessing Tallison. I mean, I know that Tallison is coming off a KO loss against Lewis and all that stuff, but that was a weird thing anyway. That was a very questionable finish, and it was just a bit weird. I didn't agree with it, but it happened. I just don't like Bam Bam anymore. I call him Bum Bum these days, right? Because he basically loses against fighters that are decent, and he wins against cans, right? So I can't take Tuivasa in this one. Everything that tickles my survival instincts is just telling me no. So I'm going with Tallison here, and yeah. How about you guys? What about you, Will?
You can't really trust Tuivasa at this stage, can you? I mean, those losses were to decent level of competition, but like he's just there for the vibes. Like he's one of those guys who blew up and got way too popular, so they put him in fights that he against the caliber he should never be competing against. I don't know about Texeira though. Like I had a very knee-jerk reaction fade to him against Derek Lewis, which was weird that no one else seemed to be on the same page as me on that one, because I just didn't understand why Texeira was getting so much love. Like, what is he? I don't understand what he's done to deserve it necessarily. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, people say he can grapple. Hopefully he does that. He's now been knocked out by a big puncher, so you'd think he would take this as an opportunity to steady the ship. But I mean, I've not seen any real evidence of him being a grappler, so I don't even know if he can do that. I don't. I've never understood the UFC fan base's just assumption that this man is good. Like, I don't understand why we were given -250 against Derek Lewis, and everyone was like, "Yeah, that's fine." It's just, I don't know. A tie to Tuivasa upset wouldn't surprise me at all, but he's also pretty awful, so I'll play it safe and pick Texeira as well. But I don't. On what grounds does this man deserve our respect? I don't know.
Okay. So from one potential sanctioned murder to another one. Here we have the surging Quillan Salkilld against dusty Jamie Mullarkey. I think Jamie Mullarkey has had a tough go of it in the UFC. He won his last fight though, and I think we actually called that here on the pod. We said that he would beat Rolando Bedoya, which he did. Bedoya being one of the worst fighters in the UFC. So before that, he got taken out by none other than Mauricio, who we were talking about earlier. He got taken out by Hackprass, who interestingly was taken out by Salkilld. So MMA math there. I think this should be a finish for Salkilld. Makdessi he beat. Makdessi is a kind of like undersized lightweight with not much power. And then he got knocked out by Naimov, who was recently knocked out by Myron Santos. His win over Francisco Prado. And a win over Michael Johnson. But he was knocked out by Jalen Turner. So he's got his fair number of knockouts. In fact, he's 6-6 in the UFC, which isn't too bad. But yeah, four of his losses by KO. So on the other side, one of you guys want to talk about Quillan, who's tearing up on a win streak right now?
I feel like the reason why Quillan is such a high favorite is just from that knockout over Hackprass. I mean, it's still in the highlight reel these days. I mean, you can go through YouTube Shorts and randomly come across it. You know, at least for me. I mean, maybe that's the algorithm, but you know, but I don't have any real strong feelings either way because Quillan is good. He is like the next generation fighter compared to Mullarkey, who kind of did okay in his career, but he's also like a product of the not an older generation, but like the one before this one, I guess. And I just feel like it's a fight which the UFC made to make Quillan look good because I can't see any other way that this fight goes other than a Quillan KO. Yeah, I haven't really even thought about this fight that much, really, as you can probably tell. So, just based off the vibes of how things might go, I'm picking Quillan here. What about you guys?
Yeah, I don't even know if he was a UFC contracted fighter. I mean, he came in against Bedoya and won, so I assume they wouldn't have cut him on a win. But yeah, regional guy, Salkild's all the hype. I mean, you know, Salkild's weird. Like his best win so far in the UFC is actually his Contender Series fight, I think. I mean, Hackprass, I guess, decent, but like I don't really take much from an early head kick KO. What can you do? But yeah, I don't know. Salkilld should run through him really, but I'm intrigued to see what his career looks like going forward. Just not quite sold on him yet, but we'll see.
Do you think that Mullarkey can survive a round, given he's got his veteran status now?
Probably no. I reckon it'll be an early Salkilld KO. I mean, that's at least that's what the narrative is suggesting will be what happens.
I had Gauthier to that fight to go to round 2, which looked like a good bet. So that was even more.
Yeah, when you said like you had a bet going for the fight going to the second round, I was leaning towards the fight going to the second round too. Like, I mean, Mullarkey is a flesh bag of like being punched. Like, I mean, he's just a punching bag, really. I don't know why I called him a flesh bag. That's a weird fucking thing. But like, anyway, I feel like he can survive the first round. He can probably cover up and, you know, be a if he doesn't know where I live, a pussy. And yeah, I reckon Salkilld will kill him in the second round. I don't know where I was going there.
I'd want really good odds to bet that. The Gauthier one, that was more kind of, I watched a little bit of tape on Pulev. I could see that he could run. With Mullarkey, you know, Bedoya was hurting him on the feet, and that guy doesn't hit hard. Well, nowhere near as hard as Salkilld, so certainly going to be a bit hairy. I wouldn't take minus money on this if it was plus money, but I think they're gonna assume that Mullarkey can survive. So I think that it will be favoured to go to round 2, but we'll see. So, yeah, let's see what we've got next. Right. Junior Tafa against Billy Elekana. That's former heavyweight Tafa against Billy Elekana. So this is a light heavyweight. Will, do you want to give us your thoughts on this one? I know that you might have been looking into this one.
I can't remember if I said it on a previous podcast, but I've definitely said it before. I think that the Tafa brothers have compromising pictures of someone in the UFC like executive group, because how are these guys still around? Yeah, like they're both the same. I feel like I can blur them into one person and just describe it, and it works. Strikers can't grapple, basically. If you're a comprehensive MMA fighter who has competent skills and can use a grappling game plan, then go for it. You'll probably end up winning. I mean, I think Junior Tafa's last loss was to Tuko Tokos, who's a fairly UFC level caliber fighter who just simply refused to die in the early striking exchanges, and then just grappled correctly. I mean, Tafa had a couple of moments where he actually did hurt Tokos, but like as he moved forward, Tokos just threw almost like a Hail Mary double leg and landed it. Like, how are you in the driver's seat about to finish your opponent and you're still getting taken down by them? I don't know. This is just, these guys are just terrible grapplers. Billy Elekana, somebody who came in, we didn't really expect much of him. He kind of was a sacrificial lamb to Guskov in his debut, and he did kind of quit after a interesting enough first round. He shot a couple of takedowns out of desperation in that one, so he has the impulse to grapple. Honestly, this is just a fight. This is just an IQ test, in my opinion, for Elekana. He looks like he's a well-rounded enough guy. He's got a bit of patience. A jack of all trades, very much not a master of anything, but compared to Junior Tafa, he probably looks like a Gracie. So I'm expecting Elekana to plug his brain in and use some grappling, and it should be pretty smooth sailing from there. I would expect, but me trusting an MMA fighter's fight IQ sounds like a terrible idea. But yeah, Elekana for me, probably by submission. That's what I would guess.
Yeah. I have similar thoughts there, but the one thing I kind of want to highlight here, and the one thing that made me laugh just a minute ago, was the Junior Tafa. Look at his height, and then you think, oh, this dude's freaking tall, and then you look at his reach and be like, fuck, this guy's a T-Rex. You can't help but like see that weird discrepancy there. I mean, like most people with 6'3" of height, they range around like a 75 to 80-inch reach. This guy probably fell short in a gene pool in that sense, and just did not get gifted with that length. And with all that tangent out of the way, I can't say outright who is going to win this one, but I do think that it's pretty much a 50-50. Like, I mean, Junior Tafa is a kickboxer who is relatively experienced. I mean, his whole background is like, well, kickboxing really, or at least boxing. One of those two. I mean, they're both pretty much melded these days. So I do think that he's going to rely on some sort of striking to win this one. But on the opposite end, Elekana is nothing too impressive. Like, he is just a name. I haven't really been. If a fighter doesn't really, tick in my brain straight off the bat, and if I can't recall their fights, it's either I've got dementia or they suck, and I don't have dementia. So Elekana probably sucks. I can't see a way that Elekana can win this one cleanly or in any big fantastic fashion, other than maybe a takedown and then the ground and pound. But then again, I still can't see that. I am on the fence. I really don't know who's going to win this one, and like since there's no women fights in this event, this might as well be one of those women fights where everyone just looks on their phone and or goes to the toilet or whatever, you know. So my tangent is over. I might pick Elekana if you guys go, you know. I'm on the same boat you guys are on, but you know, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add here. Just the odds seem to disagree that it's a close fight. It seems to be money coming in on Billy Elekana. I'm a bit like you actually, Josh. That I'm not very impressed with what I've seen of Billy Elekana. Like you said, his fights forgettable. It's funny, he actually fought down under. I believe he fought down under in his penultimate fight, which was a very boring fight. It was this one, yeah. This was down under Whitaker versus Derrida. And Billy Elekana took on Ibo Aslan in a very low activity fight. That you can see 35 strikes thrown in total for Elekana, 28 for Aslan. To win a unanimous decision, he just threw 7 more strikes. So that, I mean, it doesn't fill you with confidence. And he didn't shoot any takedowns on Aslan, I don't believe. Let's have a look. He attempted any takedowns. Oh, he did. He attempted 3. He didn't get any. So, having said that, on the flip side, you know, I have absolutely zero confidence that Tafa would be a good pick. I can remember even less about Junior Tafa, and as you said, Josh, that's usually not a good sign. I believe he has some wins in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken.
You said that the Elekana fought down under. I believe that Whitaker versus the Derrida card was in Abu Dhabi, not in Australia.
Oh, right. Okay.
I remember because that fight was at the shit time for me, and I remember those shit times.
Yeah, I don't think it makes a big difference. It was just I thought maybe it was a coincidence, but it's not. So yeah, ignore what I said about it being down under. And Tafa does have 2 wins in the UFC, but I don't know who those he's beat. Oh my god, they're heavyweight wins, aren't they? Yeah, largely irrelevant. Yeah, he's looked pretty terrible. I don't know if this slimming down to light heavyweight was supposed to improve something for him, but yeah. I think we're going to go with Elekana here, and I think probably a control-based decision, so we say.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
With a worrying 3rd round where he gets up and starts swinging. Tougher, that is, just to make Will pay attention. Right, let's keep going. Rowston against Cody Brundage. This card is not very good, is it? Any card with Cody Brundage on. I think Cam Rowston is worth watching. So hopefully he makes light work of Cody Brundage, as the odds suggest he might do. -330. We backed him on the pod, didn't we, to beat Petrosky, I believe. Oh, we U-turned, actually. That's right. We had the early leans where we picked Rowston, and then we U-turned to Petrosky. What do you guys think about this fight?
Well, I mean, straight off the bat, those odds are pretty generous, like towards betters, you know, like -330 to Rowston against against the Brundage, you know. I have to pick Rowston here. Like I can't really talk too much about his style. I have to watch the tape, but I can talk a lot about Brundage. But if I do, Brundage might file a lawsuit or like a defamation thing against me, and you know I don't want that. So I believe Rowston or Rowston's gonna win this one, and Brundage is going to be 11-8 by the end of the week. What about you, Will?
Yeah, you mentioned the odds, and that immediately stuck out to me. I looked into this one when Rowston was -250 because I couldn't understand why he wasn't like -400. Brundage is a mess. I don't know if he knows what kind of a fighter he is, but you know, half of his like almost all of his wins have kind of come against the run of play. They're either flukes or he just weasels his way to a DQ. I mean, apparently it's a plausible path to victory for the man. But like Rowston's last fight against Petrosky, I think it was a tougher challenge for him because I think Petrosky's better than Brundage. And he obviously will have prepared, done an entire camp working his wrestling defense for that one. And he got the job done really quickly, but then he's snowballing that into a second fight against a guy who probably is best as a wrestler. So I feel like that sets him in really good stead. But I mean, if they strike, I think Rowston's just more dangerous and better. And if they grapple, I think Rowston's got better BJJ as well. His takedown defense is a bit questionable. I know he got absolutely wet blanketed by Torrez Finney, who we'll talk about next, I think. But I think Rowston only needs to improve his takedown defense, and he probably has done with the work he put in the build up to the Petrosky fight and this one. So I don't think Brundage has more than like a 20% chance, really, if I'm perfectly honest. So yeah, an easy Rowston finish in my opinion. Not sure if it's a KO or a sub, probably a KO. But yeah, Rowston for the win.
Yeah, I like Cam Rowston. I actually watched all of his fights, and I think he was an underdog. He was an underdog in the Brandon Holmes fight, and I was just like, what? So yeah, I remember betting on him there. And like I said, I can't remember if I bet on him in the last one because I think we were on him early, and I think I cashed out. I didn't switch sides; I just cashed out, unfortunately. And he did a great job there. So there's no reason to doubt him in this spot because, like you both said, there's not a lot good we can say about Cody Brundage. So we're going to take Rowston, and it could be an inside the distance.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward KO, maybe round 2, just for the sake of being friendly enough to Brundage, so I can undo all this shit I just spoke about him before.
Will, is that in keeping with your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I'm always tricky at choosing between KO and sub, especially for Rowston. I think he's got potential for both.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
But yeah, KO round 2 sounds good to me.
Okay. So yeah, we just mentioned this fighter, Torrez Finney. He is taking on Jacob Malkoun, who we haven't seen for quite a while. I think Jacob Malkoun has had a serious injury with his spine. He last fought in 2024. So let's see, he fought Andre Petrosky. Okay, that was a really strange knockout where Andre Petrosky shot a takedown and then just lay on the floor afterwards because apparently he'd been knocked out by the hip of Jacob Malkoun. So that was a fairly unique KO finish for Malkoun, who has had a decent number of fights in the UFC, and he's got a positive record, 4-3. But yes, like I said, he hasn't fought since March 30th, 2024. So that's coming up for, close to 2 years due to health issues. So the odds are actually reflecting this kind of, the movement in the odds, I should say, has been swinging towards Torrez Finney for quite a while, since Finney opened as a plus 210 underdog. And look at this. I mean, this is a big change from plus 210 to plus 115. He might even end up as a favorite. I guess people are really doubting the health and fitness of Jacob Malkoun. So I will say that if Jacob Malkoun is fully fit, I think he should be the favorite based on his experience in the UFC, his home field advantage. Because what I've seen of Torrez Finney has not impressed me at all. Torrez Finney is undefeated. Yeah, he's got an impressive record. Is 11-0. If you just take a closer look at his UFC experience, he went on Dana White's Contender Series back in 2023. So he's been on it 3 times, because the first time I think Dana said, "Look, you're a bit green," because he got outstruck by Yuri Panfarov. No, he subbed him, sorry, but he basically not very active. I think that's the issue. Sorry, it was the Finney versus Rowston and the Finney versus Valentin fights, which I think he basically just laid upon his opponent. He laid on Rowston for 3 rounds. I mean, look at the control time here. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very high. I mean, this is crazy, right? Look, 4 minutes, 3.5, 4 minutes, and he lost all of the striking exchanges. I'm pretty confident. Well, Rowston outstruck him in the 3rd round. I mean, it was close in the other 2 rounds, but basically, yeah. And then if we take a look at the Valentin fight, I think it's going to be more pronounced here. There's a split decision win. Same thing. 4 minutes, 4.5, 4:18, and then strike wise, I mean, this is pathetic. 4 of 8 strikes. I mean, he shouldn't have won this fight. So yeah, there must be something else going on here, guys. In my opinion, with this line movement, I think someone's parlaying the injury, the sort of angle on Malkoun, whether it's confirmed or not. I don't know. I looked at his Instagram. I couldn't find anything wrong with him. He looks like he's fit and healthy and training. Yeah, I guess he's going to get held down by Torrez Finney. I heard someone say he's going to shoot a single leg on Torrez Finney. Why would you do that? You clearly want to keep it standing with this guy. I think that's the best way to beat him, since he doesn't throw a lot, and he obviously wants to take you down. Like, yeah, I'm struggling with this one. So yeah, help me out. Maybe Josh, what are your thoughts on this? Like, yeah, Finney's going to be traveling to Australia. I don't know if he's ever fought abroad. I'm assuming no. So it's going to be fighting the home favorite in Malkoun.
Yeah, I mean, I have been a major fan of Malkoun. Like, if you read my write-ups for the past 5 or so years, I have said praise for the man for all of those 5 years. He is one of the most well-rounded fighters to come from Australia. I know that sounds weird because he's not really a main event fighter or whatever, but he is really, really underestimated in this fight. I am shocked that the odds are that kind of close. I feel like Malkoun could be maybe a minus 200 or 250 favorite instead of a minus 150 that he is at now, according to Topology. Finney's first fight in the UFC was the most boring pile of crap ever. I have seen Hallmark movies that are more entertaining than that stuff. Like 15 minutes of him doing nothing. No, no one wants to see that at all. This isn't like some sort of like regional event where people squeak beers and go crazy in the crowd and ignore the fight in the cage. No, I mean, this is the UFC. 15 minutes of Finney doing fuck all it is not great compared to Malkoun's history of, I mean, not greatness. I mean, he's okay, but like, he's an ADCC champion in 2019. He has a few boxing wins under his belt. He has wrestling accolades. He is a training partner of Robert Whittaker, for fuck's sake. I mean, how do you not give this guy big ass numbers that, who was the minus 800 dude that, Salkilld? How do you not give Malkoun that same respect? For Torrez Finney, like, as Dom said, 3 fights in Dana White's contender series. That's twice Dana said no to him. Like, fucking hell. So my pick is Malkoun. If that's not obvious enough, I am stuck on that position. And yeah,
I've seen nothing. I've seen nothing impressive from Finney. He finished some cans on the regional scene, and Malkoun fought close with Brendan Allen. I mean, I don't think Finney has a future in the UFC, and I think if Malkoun is healthy, this fight is going to show it. That's my opinion, and I don't understand the line movement unless there's something else going on. And I think, Will, maybe you want to elaborate on that. I think.
Yeah, I went through the exact same journey as you guys did. I looked into the fight by watching tape on Finney and was like, oh my god, this is disgusting. His style is literally the antithesis of the scoring criteria. Like, it doesn't surprise me that even if he does his best work, he still loses. Like, he's awful. But then comparing that with Malkoun's a better striker. Malkoun's probably got better cardio. He's scrappy, and Finney will give him the fight he wants if Finney fights the way he wants to. So definitely seems like a Malkoun should be a decent sized favorite. I think he was like minus 220, which I didn't really have a problem with. But then I guess there's conversations around like the size, because obviously Finney is built like a, I don't know, brick shit house, I guess you could say. And that kind of does bring into question whether or not Malkoun wants to shoot his single and double legs. It's harder to do against a muscle based person who's got like pretty offensively grapple and have mediocre top control. But like, what's he like off his back? He probably rolls like a turtle that's like on its shell. I mean, he may not. It's hard to say. Whereas I know if Malkoun gets taken down, he's going to fight hard to get back up again, and he probably will. But then again, size, is it hard to get a turtle that's the right way up off of you? Who knows? Yeah, I went back and forth on it because again, like that line movement's really weird. And then I looked into the injury thing. Apparently he didn't spar for a year during his 2 years off because of the injury that he had to his back. It definitely sounds like a red flag and it sounds concerning. And all of this line movement makes me think that the people that know. So whilst I've done the research to conclude that Malkoun's probably value at his current odds, I think that it doesn't take a genius to come to that conclusion. So the fact that money is coming in on Finney definitely surprises me. It therefore concerns me, because if it looks pretty obvious to you that shouldn't be happening, yet it is, people are parting with their own money, you got to ask, why are they doing that? And we've seen a lot already in 2026 about bettors and injuries and how those two things can be related. I wouldn't be surprised if this one is similar, and if it carries on happening, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with a Alex Hernandez versus Michael Johnson-esque kind of thing, because to me this seems like something's going on with Malkoun's health, and we're not going to get Jacob Malkoun that we saw on tape, and the one that fought Brendan Allen, as you highlighted, Dom. So I am dubious and I am concerned, but if both guys fight at their best, Malkoun should absolutely be a favourite, and more of a favourite than -135. So yeah, do with that information.
Yeah, some books are being a bit slow to adjust. He's still out there as +150 and -180. I baffles me. Yeah, maybe we're not going to get the Malkoun that we saw on tape. That would be a real shame if that's the case. So yeah, it's definitely a warning sign, and I think these odds movements are definitely worth monitoring, because I think now we know that they clearly contain insider signals. It's something that people have information that we're not privy to, and they're trading on it, and ignoring it would be unwise, is basically what you're saying. So the pick is Malkoun based upon the tape, based upon the records, based upon everything, home advantage. This is not. Yeah, this shouldn't be competitive. Yet we've got an even money fight here, because Malkoun's been away for 2 years, and some people know things about his health that perhaps we don't. I think that probably Malkoun would win a decision. I think most of his fights in the UFC, actually. I'm not a big fan of Malkoun, by the way. I should have said that. I don't really rate him. I don't think he will ever be like a top 15 fighter. In fact, I would be aghast. I would be absolutely aghast if Jacob Malkoun ever makes it to top 15 in the middleweight division. But he's a good fighter, so I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be in the UFC. I just don't see him as a ranked fighter. I think the Allen fight was him very much overperforming and Brendan Allen underestimating him, because he's not bad. Yeah, he's a bit more of a decision fighter. Well, he's got a DQ, obviously. That was Cody Brundage, and he's got the funny KO. Obviously, we're using his hip on Petrosky. You took those two out, he wouldn't have a very impressive record at all. So, yeah, this is what I'm referring to here. 3 decision wins, 1 decision loss, a DQ. That was because he hit Cody Brundage on the back of the head. His singular KO with his hip, and then a KO loss to Phil Hawes, which happened in like 20 seconds. So, yeah, I'm not high on Malkoun, but I'm really a lot less high on Torrez Finney. So Malkoun decision it is, but with this odds movement, perhaps stay away. Here's a more sort of prospect versus prospect fight that's probably going to be quite exciting when it takes place. We've got Jonathan Micallef against Oban Elliot. Let's bring up their records. So yeah, these guys were scheduled to fight last year, I believe, and unfortunately Oban Elliot got ill. He caught an illness and had to pull out of the fight, even though he'd already travelled down under. So I think he was supposed to be on the Perth card. So we click on Micallef and see if that's true. Cancellation, I think. Yeah, here it is. The cancelled bout with Oban Elliot was supposed to take place in September last year. So there's a bit of history to this one. I guess a lot of people have broken this fight down before. I remember doing a bit of tape on it and being a bit torn. And I think you chaps have broken this down before as well, I guess, before the pullout, because it was a late pullout. So what did you conclude from your tape study before?
I believe my main conclusion for this fight was that Micallef was going to be the more effective striker if he learns how to box properly. Because when he fought Kevin Gisette, it was a very kick-heavy approach from him. And despite the reach advantage from Micallef, I believe could you scroll down a little bit so I can see the reach? Yeah, so 5 inches of reach. You would think that Micallef would box Elliot's block off, right? But no. Micallef's boxing is relatively rudimentary. He uses his boxing only passively, like just like gauge range or whatever. But his primary output recently has been his kicks. And if he does use his kicks a lot, then maybe Elliot can catch those kicks and get a takedown. But my main takeaway from this one was that it's pretty much a striker versus grappler fight, with Elliot being the grappler and Micallef being the striker. What I did fall on prediction-wise, because I did put a prediction here, is I went for a Micallef decision victory for him. And then that's probably what I'm going to stick to this time around, because, I mean, frankly, nothing has changed, really. I didn't think Micallef fought anyone as a replacement fighter, and I don't think Elliot has fought anyone since then. I don't know if I'm wrong there, but either way, from my notes, I feel comfortable saying that Micallef should win by a decision.
And Will, what is your take on this? We've got Micallef by decision, did you say?
Yes.
I'm in concordance with that. I think your breakdown is very accurate, Josh. I think that the kicks of Micallef could be a big weapon on the feet, and his grappling is definitely better than Elliot's, and I think that he can exploit either to win this. I think the odds as well are indicating that he should be a favourite, because I think it opened up at a pick'em. Let's have a look. Where's this fight? Oh, there it is. Okay, so there's money coming in on Oban Elliot. He was minus 110 at open. No, sorry, he's been hovering around plus 120, plus 110. He's now plus 110. And Micallef is now minus 130. So, yeah, some people are now putting money on Oban Elliot, which I can understand, to be honest. What do you think, Will?
Competitive and close fight, but in my eyes, Micallef has more routes to be comfortable. I think that Oban Elliott's UFC career has mostly been him showing that he's a good anti-wrestler, and that's specifically of like a single and double traditional wrestling. And Micallef does shoot those kind of takedowns, but he's also got some like judo grappling, which is what Ko used to beat Oban Elliot last time. Yeah, I just think that like wherever the fight takes place, I think that Micallef has at least a 50% chance of winning it. Whereas if they go to the mat, I think Micallef has much more than a 50% chance. I just don't really see where Elliot wants this fight to go to consistently produce a victory. So I just think that on the numbers, Micallef should therefore be favoured at like 60 to 65%, in my opinion. So yeah, the Micallef by decision would be my pick as well. But yeah, it's going to look competitive either way, I think. So it's a bit of a weird one.
Okay, no, I think we're all aligned here. So yeah, we're getting to the back end of the card now. The next fight up, Kaan Ofli against Yizha. And if I'm not mistaken, it says here he's Turkish, but I think Kaan Ofli is based in this part of the world, isn't he? Yes, he is. Melbourne, Australia. Thought so. Yeah, I could be honest, I don't know much about this Yizha. I know Kaan Ofli because he upset. Yeah, he had an upset recently in Brazil, right? He went to Brazil when he beat Ricardo Ramos as a pretty big dog. And then Yizha beat Weston Wilson. That means literally nothing. He lost to Gabriel Santos, who's a very good fighter. And then he was in the Road to UFC. So, Josh, you know a lot about Road to UFC fighters. How good is this Yizha? And is he a striker? Because I think Kaan Ofli has sort of mid grappling that you might be able to nullify striking with.
Now, the way that I kind of remember Road to UFC fights is that I don't, and I can't really recall Yizha. I mean, if I was to remember him, it's probably him being a bullish, aggressive fighter, maybe a heavy style wrestler. But then again, that's like half of the contenders on the whole like tournament. Then, so I am a bit rough on how he fights. Although I do think that he can probably get a win over Ofli, because Ofli shouldn't even be in the UFC right now. He should be in the regional promotions trying to get back into the UFC, because he lost in that the Ultimate Fighter season that happened. Oh God, last year, the year before. I don't know. I'm waffling. Yeah. When it comes to the prediction, I think Yizha should win, but it's a fight that's not even on my radar until now, so I haven't really given it much thought. So I'm gonna pass this on to Will.
And I am gonna say something for 10 seconds and then pass it back on. I have no idea what to say about this one, honestly. Like, Kaan Ofli has fought in the UFC. I don't know where I was every time he did that. Apparently I wasn't watching. I don't fucking know. Yeah, Yizha at least seems to have something about him, in that, like, he went out there against Weston Wilson and really did understand the assignment and, like, throw down on him. Whereas Ofli just sort of, up until that Ramos fight, seems very much like he just sort of exists and survives in the cage, doesn't do anything to really put his stamp on it, as far as I remember. But yeah, I guess I'd also pick Yizha. But yeah, I couldn't really explain why.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an early leans, right? So I think at this point I was looking at this thinking, I need to do some tape here, because I think Kaan Ofli might be a good underdog bet. Seems like the line is not moving from where it was where it opened, which is always a good sign that there might be potential on underdog. So there was some money that came on Yizha, and then it went back to where it was originally. So you see here the bookie set it at -185. People bet it thinking, well, this is great. For some reason, went to -250, and then slowly money's been coming back, which means whatever the early people saw, they may have bet it, and then people have studied it and have gone, actually, do you know what? There's a grappling path to victory here, and Yizha doesn't have any grappling or something. So I think it requires a little bit more looking into. For the sake of the early lean, happy to take Yizha. I think Kaan Ofli's been stopped a couple of times in the UFC. No, he was knocked out by Myron Santos, there's no shame in that, and he went to a decision with Naimov. But I think this Yizha has a lot of knockouts on his record, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've heard people talking very positively about him. Yizha has, well, first we've got 31 fights, which is mightily impressive for someone who's just starting the UFC. And yeah, what's his knockout ratio? Okay, he's a submission guy. He has 14 submissions and 6 KOs. He's lost once by KO, once by submission, and then he's got 9 fights that went to decision. So he's obviously an all-action fighter. That'll be fun. But I don't think it's easy to finish Kaan Ofli. So what do you reckon? Decision here? Maybe wins it through damage.
I feel like it's just going to run for him. I reckon it's going to be a KO. Maybe round 2. I'm always a round 2 person, so yeah, round 2.
Okay.
Yeah, fine by me. I'm just going to agree. I have no idea.
We're doing our best here. All 3 of us are facing hurdles. That was actually the last fight, because the next 3 fights or 4 fights are the Road to UFC tournament, are they? Is that right, Josh? Or
Yep,
the
that's
finals?
it. And I have done some tape on all of these fighters here, because it's the most recent tournament, or the most recent thing that they've done for the Road to UFC. And I will highlight one name, and I don't know what the odds are. I haven't even checked. But Sebastian Zazale, as you see there, against Kichiro Nakamura, this dude's fucking awesome. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, he is a training partner of Volkanovski. He is a 2-time eternal featherweight champion. You know, he is nuts, and I reckon he's gonna win. So that's my little promo.
Well, I find that mighty interesting because he's plus 100. So if that's true, I guess I better get taping it, because
Get on it.
plus 100 with that kind of summary against Keiichiro Nakamura, and people are betting Nakamura. He opened plus 170, is now minus 120. So people disagree. Whoever's betting the early money, I think this has only been open for a day. I think it came out today. This line came out today. Nakamura was plus 170, and today's been bet down to minus 120. So sorry, sorry, Josh.
It's all good. They'll find out soon enough, or maybe I will. I don't know, but like,
Yeah. So maybe we need to do some tape on Nakamura. But yeah, we don't have to pick these ones. We've managed to battle through this early leans show, and we hope that you managed to stay through most of it. We're all of us will be better in better situations next time we'll film the best bets for UFC 325. We'll also do our fight focus, where we'll pick fights which we break down, and we'll release that later in the week. As always, thanks for tuning in. Any likes, subscribes are greatly appreciated, and yeah, we'll keep bringing the content. So yeah, that's it from us. Thanks everyone.